Picture this. You're standing in the magnificent ballroom of the Louvre Palace in Paris on August 18, 1572, dressed in your finest silk doublet, as you watch servants carry in the most elaborate wedding cake anyone has ever seen. The occasion is the marriage of Marguerite de Valois, daughter of Catherine de Medici, to Henry of Navarre, and the celebration promises to bring together the most powerful Protestant and Catholic nobles in France. But as you reach for that tempting slice of cake, you have no idea that you're about to consume the centerpiece of history's most audacious mass poisoning plot. What you're witnessing isn't just a royal wedding celebration, it's the culmination of Catherine de Medici's master plan to eliminate her political enemies in a single devastating stroke. The woman known as the Queen Mother of France had spent months orchestrating this event, not as a gesture of peace between warring religious factions, but as the perfect opportunity to serve death disguised as celebration. Before we uncover this buried truth about one of history's most ruthless queens, make sure to subscribe to Buried Truths and hit that notification bell. We're about to reveal how a royal wedding became a weapon of mass destruction, and how Catherine de Medici nearly succeeded in reshaping the entire political landscape of 16th century Europe with a single poisoned feast. Catherine de Medici had arrived in France in 1533 as a 14-year-old Italian bride, bringing with her not just Florentine wealth but also generations of knowledge about the subtle arts of political assassination. The Medici family had ruled Florence through a combination of banking genius and strategic elimination of rivals, traditions that Catherine would adapt to the more complex religious and political conflicts of French court life. By 1572, France was tearing itself apart in the wars of religion, with Catholic and Protestant nobles locked in a cycle of violence that threatened to destroy the kingdom entirely. Catherine, now Queen Mother and effective ruler during her son Charles V's reign, had tried traditional diplomatic solutions without success. The time had come, she decided, for more decisive action. The marriage between her daughter Marguerite and the Protestant Henry of Navarre was presented to the world as a gesture of reconciliation, a symbolic union that would heal France's religious divisions. In reality, Catherine saw it as the perfect trap, an event so significant that every major Protestant leader in France would feel obligated to attend, gathering her enemies in one place where they could be eliminated simultaneously. The planning for what Catherine privately called her final solution began months before the wedding. She established a secret team of Italian specialists, men who had learned the arts of poison preparation in the same Florentine laboratories that had served the Medici family for generations. These experts were brought to France under cover of preparing exotic delicacies for the royal wedding feast. The centerpiece of Catherine's plot was the wedding cake itself, a towering confection that would serve not just as a symbol of celebration, but as a delivery mechanism for the most sophisticated poison blend ever created. The cake was designed with multiple layers, each one targeting different groups of guests based on their political importance and the specific methods Catherine wanted to use to eliminate them. The base layer of the cake, intended for lower-ranking Protestant nobles, contained a slow-acting arsenic compound that would cause symptoms resembling food poisoning. These men would become ill during the celebration but wouldn't die for several days, providing Catherine with plausible deniability about the connection between their deaths and the wedding feast. The middle layers contained more sophisticated toxins derived from rare plants that Italian alchemists had been perfecting for decades. These poisons were designed to cause heart failure that would appear to be natural deaths, particularly convincing for older nobles who might reasonably be expected to succumb to the excitement and stress of such a grand celebration. The top layer of the cake, reserved for the most important Protestant leaders, contained Catherine's masterpiece, a poison that would cause rapid but dramatic death that could be attributed to divine judgment. These victims would collapse during the celebration itself, their deaths serving as a shocking demonstration of God's supposed displeasure with Protestant heresy. The cake's construction required unprecedented coordination between Catherine's poisoners and the royal kitchen staff. Each layer had to be prepared separately to prevent cross-contamination, while the decorative elements had to be designed to guide specific guests toward the intended portions. The frosting itself became a complex map of death, with different decorative elements marking safe and dangerous sections. Catherine's most ingenious innovation was the development of an antidote system that would protect her Catholic allies, while ensuring the elimination of Protestant enemies. Selected guests received special digestive tonics before the feast, presented as traditional wedding gifts but actually containing compounds that would neutralize the specific poisons intended for Protestant consumption. The guest list for the wedding had been carefully curated to ensure maximum impact from Catherine's operation. Every major Protestant leader in France received personal invitations, while Catholic nobles were strategically seated in areas where they would be served cake portions that had been treated with neutralizing agents. The seating arrangements themselves became a form of targeting system. Admiral Coligny, the most powerful Protestant military leader, was assigned a place of honor at the head table, where he would receive the first slice of the deadly top layer. His death would decapitate Protestant military leadership while demonstrating the apparent divine nature of the judgments falling upon heretics. Other key Protestant figures were positioned according to their importance and the specific manner of death. Catherine had planned for them. The wedding ceremony itself proceeded normally, with both Catholic and Protestant guests participating in the elaborate rituals that symbolized the union of the two religious traditions. Catherine played her role perfectly, presenting herself as the loving mother who had arranged this marriage to bring peace to France while privately counting down the hours until her enemies would begin consuming their own deaths. The wedding feast began with traditional French courses, allowing Catherine to observe her guests and ensure that everyone was consuming the preliminary dishes that would enhance the effects of the poisoned cake. The Queen Mother moved through the crowd like a gracious hostess, personally ensuring that key Protestant leaders were enjoying themselves and building their appetites for the grand finale. When the moment finally arrived for the presentation of the wedding cake, Catherine herself performed the ceremonial first cutting, using a golden knife to slice into the magnificent confection while offering prayers for the happiness and prosperity of the married couple. The irony was lost on the Protestant guests, who saw only a mother's love rather than an executioner's precision. The distribution of cake slices followed Catherine's predetermined plan exactly. Servants who had been briefed on the seating arrangements delivered specific portions to targeted individuals, while Catholic guests received their harmless pieces with the same ceremony. The poisoners had done their work so skillfully that the different sections of cake appeared identical, distinguished only by subtle variations in decoration that meant nothing to the intended victims. Admiral Coligny received his slice personally from Catherine, who insisted on serving the most honored guest herself. The Protestant leader graciously accepted what he believed was a gesture of reconciliation, unaware that he was consuming a poison so potent that it would kill him within hours. As the evening progressed, Catherine watched her enemies with the satisfaction of a master strategist, seeing her plan unfold perfectly. The Protestant leaders consumed their cake portions with obvious enjoyment, many asking for additional servings that would only accelerate their doom. The Queen Mother encouraged these requests, playing the role of generous hostess while internally calculating the precise timing of the coming catastrophe. The first symptoms appeared exactly as Catherine's poisoners had predicted. Lower-ranking Protestant nobles began experiencing digestive distress that they initially attributed to overindulgence at the rich feast. The Queen Mother expressed appropriate concern for their comfort while privately noting the success of her slow-acting formulations. More serious symptoms began manifesting in the middle tier of victims. As the evening wore on, several prominent Protestant courtiers complained of chest pains and difficulty breathing, symptoms that court physicians attributed to excitement and the stress of the grand celebration. Catherine personally summoned doctors to attend to these guests, maintaining her facade of concern, while ensuring that the medical response would be too late to save them. The climax of Catherine's plan came near midnight, when Admiral Coligny suddenly collapsed at the head table, clutching his chest as the most potent poison reached his heart. His dramatic death, witnessed by hundreds of guests, created exactly the kind of chaos that Catherine had intended. The death toll mounted rapidly as Catherine's various poisons took effect according to their designed schedules. Within hours, nearly 200 Protestant nobles had either died or were clearly dying from the effects of the contaminated cake. The wedding celebration transformed into a nightmare of political assassination that would have reshaped the entire balance of power in France. But Catherine's perfect plan contained one fatal flaw that she had not anticipated. The marriage between Marguerite and Henry of Navarre was so politically sensitive that foreign ambassadors and papal representatives were also present at the feast. When these international observers began falling ill alongside the Protestant nobles, it became clear that something beyond divine judgment was responsible for the catastrophe. The Venetian ambassador, who had been served cake from a section intended for Protestant consumption due to a seating error, began experiencing symptoms that he immediately recognized as poison. His survival and testimony provided crucial evidence that the deaths were the result of deliberate assassination rather than natural causes or divine intervention. As dawn broke over Paris on August 19, 1572, the scope of Catherine's mass poisoning became undeniable. Nearly 200 guests lay dead or dying from what was clearly a coordinated attack, while the surviving Protestant leaders had fled the city in terror. The Queen Mother's attempt to eliminate her enemies had succeeded tactically but failed strategically by exposing the deliberate nature of the killings. The international consequences of Catherine's actions were severe and immediate. Protestant rulers across Europe denounced the wedding massacre as evidence of Catholic treachery, while even Catholic monarchs expressed horror at the scale and method of the killings. The Pope himself issued statements condemning the use of a religious ceremony as a cover for mass murder. The investigation into the poisoned cake led directly back to Catherine's Italian specialists, several of whom were captured while attempting to flee France. Under interrogation, they revealed the full scope of the Queen Mother's plan, including the sophisticated poison preparations and the targeting system that had determined which guests received which lethal doses. Catherine initially attempted to deny her involvement, claiming that the deaths were the result of contaminated food or enemy sabotage. However, the evidence against her was overwhelming, including detailed records of poison purchases and testimony from kitchen staff who had witnessed the cake preparation. Her Italian background made the accusations particularly credible, given the Medici family's reputation for sophisticated assassination techniques. The political aftermath of the wedding massacre was catastrophic for Catherine's objectives. Rather than eliminating Protestant resistance, the mass poisoning united Protestant nobles in their opposition to the crown, while providing them with powerful propaganda about Catholic brutality. The Queen Mother's attempt to end the wars of religion through assassination had instead intensified the conflict. International isolation followed domestic political disaster as European courts began treating Catherine as a pariah. Marriage negotiations for her remaining children collapsed as foreign rulers refused to ally themselves with a monarch who had demonstrated her willingness to murder wedding guests. The economic consequences were equally severe as trade relationships deteriorated. Catherine spent her remaining years trying to rebuild her reputation and restore stability to France, but the memory of the poisoned wedding cake followed her everywhere. Protestant propagandists used the massacre as evidence of Catholic evil, while even Catholic supporters questioned whether any political objective could justify such massive bloodshed at a supposedly sacred ceremony. When Catherine de Medici died in 1589, she left behind a France that was more divided and violent than ever before. Her attempt to resolve the nation's religious conflicts through mass murder had instead created new martyrs for the Protestant cause, while establishing precedents for political violence that would haunt the kingdom for generations. The buried truth about Catherine's poisoned wedding cake remained officially suppressed for centuries, with royal historians describing the deaths as the result of food contamination or divine intervention. However, enough evidence survived in private papers and foreign diplomatic reports to confirm that the Queen Mother had indeed orchestrated one of history's most audacious mass assassination attempts. Modern historians who have examined the available evidence conclude that Catherine's plan was both more sophisticated and more ruthless than previously understood. The technical expertise required to create different poisons for different targets, combined with the logistical complexity of the targeting system, demonstrates a level of premeditation that rivals any modern terrorist operation. Catherine's story serves as a chilling reminder of how political desperation can drive even the most intelligent leaders to embrace solutions that violate every principle of human decency. Her willingness to transform a wedding celebration into a weapon of mass destruction reveals the dangerous potential for power to corrupt moral reasoning completely. The legacy of the poisoned wedding cake extends far beyond Catherine's own reign, establishing patterns of political violence and religious hatred that would influence French history for centuries. Her mass assassination attempt demonstrated that no gathering, however sacred or celebratory, was immune from being weaponized by those desperate enough to pursue their objectives without regard for human cost. Today, as we continue to face threats from those who would use public gatherings and celebrations as opportunities for violence, Catherine de Medici's poisoned wedding cake stands as a historical warning about the eternal human capacity for transforming joy into terror in service of political ambition.